distinct, the conversation feels very analog.
Camille?
But like you picture dusty archives or maybe an aging population in a really remote village.
Like anthropologists frantically recording spoken folk stories on cassette tapes.
Exactly. It is almost always framed as this antiquarian tragedy, as something fading quietly into the past, preserved only in museums.
It becomes a purely historical concern. The narrative is always that, well, the world modernized, and a particular dialect simply couldn't keep up with the industrial era.
But then you look at the struggle for the Azerbaijani Turkish language, and we are completely out of the dusty archives here.
Yeah, totally different battlefield.
We're looking at a battleground that stretches from ancient religious texts and fiery debates about prophets all the way to, the algorithms driving modern artificial intelligence.
It's wild.
It really is. So today's mission is to unpack this high-stakes debate over the survival of a language. And we are pulling from two incredibly distinct sources for this deep dive. First, we have a highly provocative manifesto, which was published back in May 2020 by Professor Dr. Saleh Mammadov.
And second, we're analyzing two strategic official responses to that manifesto. Those come from the South Azerbaijan Consulting Network, or SACN, and they were authored by Rıza Qaraçay.
SACN, right.
Yeah, and it is actually really worth noting SACN's logo here because it visually anchors our entire analysis today.
Oh, the logo is amazing.
It's perfect. The logo is an image of a human brain, but it's constructed entirely out of digital computer circuits that are intertwined with traditional cultural motifs.
Past and future literally wired together. I love that.
Exactly.
Now, before we really explore how these texts interact, I need to take a second and speak directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, this is important.
The sources we are unpacking today contain some highly charged political and religious claims. We are going to be discussing critiques of Islamic institutions, very specific and controversial interpretations of the Quran, and pretty intense geopolitical statements about language suppression. So, we must firmly state that as we navigate this material, we are entirely impartial. We are not taking any sides, and we are not endorsing any of these viewpoints.
Absolutely not.
Our only goal is to report on and analyze the ideas presented in the original texts to help you understand the mechanics of this really complex debate.
And Mammadov's 2020 manifesto is really the spark that ignited this specific discourse.
Quite a spark.
It is, because he bypasses grammar and linguistics entirely. He anchors his whole argument in theology.
Which is not where you usually start a linguistics debate.
No, not at all. He builds his foundation on specific verses from the Quran. He cites Ibrahim chapter 14, verse 4, Yunus verse 47, and Fatir verse 24.
Okay, so Mammadov looks at these verses and basically concludes that divine communication fundamentally relies on native fluency. Right. The text asserts that every prophet is sent speaking the language of their own nation so they can explain commands clearly.
Yeah, he is arguing you cannot separate the divine message from the mother tongue. But then he takes that religious premise and applies it to his own people, drawing this hyper-specific, highly controversial conclusion.
This is the part that blew my mind.
Yeah. He argues that if every nation has a prophet in their own tongue by divine design, then the true prophet of the Azerbaijani nation is the historical figure Babak.
He elevates a historical figure of resistance into a prophet.
Exactly.
Based purely on a linguistic interpretation of Scripture. I mean, that is a massive theological swing.
It completely rewires the cultural narrative, right? He is trying to establish that the Azerbaijani language has a divine mandate that predates any modern geopolitical borders.
Wow.
And he uses this to highlight what he sees as an agonizing historical paradox regarding the written Azerbaijani language.
What's the paradox?
Well, Mammadov claims that after Islam was, in his words, fastened to the people, the language essentially stopped developing in a formal academic sense.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it survived strictly as an oral language, just hidden away in homes and villages.
Which stunts a language entirely. I mean, when a language only survives orally, it loses the ability to develop specialized vocabulary.
Right.
Like, you can talk about farming or family, but you lose the lexicon for science or philosophy or law.
And that is the insidious nature of linguistic suppression. The oppressor forces your language out of academia, and then, a few generations later, they point to your lack of scientific vocabulary as proof that your language is inherently inferior.
That's so frustrating.
It is. And Mammadov looks at who actually did the work of formalizing the language eventually, and the timeline he lays out is really striking.
Yeah.
He points out that the very first Azerbaijani textbook wasn't even written by local scholars. It was written in 1883 by a Russian Christian, A.O. Cherdiaevsky.
Right, and then moving into the 20th century, the written language was perfected and heavily researched during the Soviet era.
Yeah.
And if you fast forward to today, the entity doing the most work to develop the digital presence of the language is a Christian American Google. Like, Mammadov is looking at his language like it's an abandoned family mansion. He's asking, why are the only people doing the maintenance, writing the books, digitizing the words, completely unrelated strangers, while our own family ignores it?
That's a great way to put it. He feels the immediate community has just neglected its own foundational pillar, and they're relying on foreign entities to basically catalog their existence.
Yeah.
And he reinforces this frustration with legal frameworks. He points to the Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan.
Okay, bringing the law into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Article 21.1 states that the state language is Azerbaijani, and the state explicitly ensures its development.
Okay, so it's guaranteed.
Right. But then he pairs that with Article 18.1, which establishes the strict separation of religion and state.
So he is synthesizing these two laws to point out a glaring hypocrisy in daily life.
Exactly. He observes that Arabic is consistently prioritized in religious institutions, mosques, and mourning ceremonies, completely overriding Azerbaijani. For Mammadov, this violates both constitutional rules. He is questioning how the state can claim to protect the language and maintain secularism if the most intimate communal moments of grief and spirituality are mandated in a foreign tongue.
I mean, Mammadov throws this incredibly fiery challenge into the public sphere. It's this intense blend of theology, historical paradoxes, and constitutional law.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But then we see the institutional response from SACN, authored by Rıza Qaraçay, and their approach, honestly, it feels like a masterclass in strategic de-escalation.
It really does.
Yeah.
SACN responds with this measured, very institutional tone.
Yeah.
They acknowledge the Quranic verses Mammadov cited, but they immediately contextualize them.
Right.
They point out that how those specific verses apply to modern nation-states is the subject of exceptionally broad, highly complex theological debate across the entire Islamic world.
So they basically close the door on his Babic theory without outright attacking him.
Yes.
They establish that assigning a specific historical figure as a prophet for a specific nation simply is not an accepted religious conclusion.
Exactly. They de-escalate.
But let me push back on their strategy for a second, because I want to make sure I understand. Is SACN essentially telling Mammadov that picking a theological fight about who the real prophet is actually distracting from the very real, modern emergency of saving the language?
That captures their underlying thesis perfectly.
Yeah.
They validate his anxiety,
Yeah.
but they correct his methodology.
Right.
Engaging in a localized theological dispute over prophecy is a battle that you just cannot win in a courtroom or a policy meeting.
No.
So SACN pivots the conversation toward scientific research, legal principles, and open public debate.
They validate his constitutional argument entirely, though.
Oh, they do. They affirm that the separation of religion and state, alongside the state's absolute duty to develop the language, are vile legal realities.
Yeah.
But SACN insists these realities require practical, actionable policy discussions.
Right.
Like, you cannot legislate a historical grievance. You have to build infrastructure.
Which shifts us from the abstract realm of theology and constitutional theory to the physical, on-the-ground reality.
Yes.
Because both sources fundamentally agree that there is a severe geographic epicenter to this crisis, and that's South Azerbaijan.
Right. And Mammadov uses highly charged geopolitical framing here.
He does.
He refers to the population in South Azerbaijan as living under, quote, Islamic captivity, and claims that 80% of the global Azerbaijani population actually resides there.
And SACN looks at that exact same geographic reality, but they reframe it through the lens of international law.
Yes.
They explicitly define the suppression in South Azerbaijan as a human rights issue.
Right.
Like, speaking, learning, and writing in a mother tongue isn't just a cultural nicety, It is a fundamental international right recognized by global institutions.
It is. And the systemic hurdles in South Azerbaijan are crippling.
What does that look like on the ground?
Well, university education is predominantly conducted in Persian. There's a massive critical lack of scientific literature available in Azerbaijani Turkish.
Wow.
And beyond academia, there are immense obstacles to using the language in official settings in public administration.
I mean, think about your own life for a second. Imagine having to navigate your entire professional world. Going to the doctor, arguing in court, learning physics in a secondary language.
Yeah.
While your mother tongue is legally or socially confined strictly to the walls of your living room. The cognitive load alone is exhausting.
It creates a ceiling on intellectual potential.
Exactly.
SACN stresses that a language is far more than just a tool for basic transactional communication. It operates as the collective memory of a people.
Right.
It is their historical consciousness. If you sever a language from science, administration, and public life, you are dismantling the main pillar of their cultural heritage.
But the thing is, even if you manage to secure the right to speak your language in a physical courtroom or publish a physical textbook, that victory is incredibly fragile if your language doesn't exist where the future is being built.
This is the turning point of the whole debate.
Right. Both Mammadov and SACN arrive at the realization that the battlefield has migrated entirely.
The fight for survival has completely moved into the digital realm. SACN introduces this concept of digital survival. In the 21st century, language development is a matter of national security.
It's not just chalkboards anymore.
Exactly. A language doesn't just live in schools or print anymore. It lives on servers and algorithms and in data sets.
And if a language is missing from artificial intelligence, from large language models, search engines, and voice recognition software, it faces a completely modern, invisible form of extinction.
Right.
You just cease to exist in the digital operating system of the modern world.
And Mammadov expresses profound despair over this. He laments that no native institutions are doing this digital work.
Just leaving it to Google.
Right. But SACN answers that despair with a concrete, robust action plan centered on technological infrastructure.
Okay, what's the plan?
Well, they propose creating a comprehensive digital development strategy.
Because you can't just have rogue programmers coding in the dark.
No, it requires centralized architecture.
Yeah.
And that leads to the core mechanism of their plan, which is building open source text and voice corpora. For a language to survive digitally, it has to be fed into the machine.
We have to look at how artificial intelligence actually learns a language too. Because you can't just feed an AI a raw, unformatted PDF of a 19th century novel.
No, it would just spit out garbage.
Right. It's like feeding a human a whole stalk of unharvested wheat. The data has to be milled, processed, and annotated so the machine can actually digest the syntax.
Exactly. AI models operate on tokenization. Dominant languages like English have highly optimized tokens.
Meaning the AI can predict the next word cheaply and efficiently?
Yes, but for low-resource languages, the AI really struggles to map the grammar. It breaks words into fragments, making computation incredibly expensive and highly inaccurate.
That is why SACN emphasizes the preparation of high-quality data specifically optimized for AI databases.
Yeah, they are calling for the creation of parallel corpora.
Which are massive data sets where texts are perfectly translated sentence by sentence, right?
Right, allowing the algorithm to map the vector space of the Azerbaijani language against established digital languages.
They also focus heavily on digitizing works by South Azerbaijani authors.
Which is crucial.
Because they aren't just trying to teach a machine vocabulary. They are trying to preserve the cultural syntax, the idioms, the unique worldview embedded in the literature.
And gathering that kind of specialized annotated data requires an immense amount of human labor.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is.
Yeah.
So SACN's strategy involves establishing international cooperation and heavily involving the diaspora.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, they are calling on programmers, linguists, and tech experts of Azerbaijani descent living globally to crowdsource this infrastructure.
They need native speakers worldwide to generate voice data, to train speech-to-text algorithms, and engineers to structure the open-source libraries.
Exactly.
A language in the 21st century without digital representation is like a business without a website today.
That's a perfect comparison.
I mean, it might exist locally, but to the rest of the world and to the future, it's practically invisible.
If you aren't in the training data, you literally don't exist to the next generation of technology.
Yeah.
SACN is arguing that teaching a child their mother tongue is only half the battle. You have to teach the machine, too.
Right.
Otherwise, the child will eventually just abandon the language so they can participate in the digital economy.
Man, the scope of this debate is just staggering.
It really is.
We started with ancient Quranic verses and a passionate, almost desperate historical grievance regarding a specific interpretation of prophecy.
Right.
And then we moved through the friction between constitutional law and religious tradition.
We explored the tangible human rights crisis in South Azerbaijan,
Yeah.
looking at the cognitive and cultural toll of linguistic suppression in academia and government.
And finally, we landed on the urgent, highly technical need for open-source AI databases.
SACN managed to take a fiery, emotional plea and channel it into a modern technological roadmap.
They really did. They shifted the paradigm from historical tragedy to digital strategy.
Because they recognize that anger over the past won't format a database for the future.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to reflect on your own relationship with technology.
Yeah, think about this for a second.
Think about how much of your daily life, like texting, relying on voice assistants, using predictive text, or generating AI content relies entirely on your native language being supported, funded, and prioritized by massive tech giants.
Most people just assume the machine will naturally understand them. But for millions across the globe, that baseline assumption is a technological luxury they're currently fighting for.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to explore on your own.
Let's hear it.
We see the intense struggle for the Azerbaijani Turkish language to simply get a foothold in the digital world. But if the future of artificial intelligence is primarily trained on a handful of dominant languages, are we heading toward a future where AI unintentionally acts as a digital colonizer?
Oh, wow.
Like filtering the unique thoughts, idioms, and cultures of minority languages through the rigid lens of a few dominant digital tongues.
That's terrifying, but true. The preservation of human thought might ultimately depend on who writes the code.
It really might.
Hmm?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.